Can you help? Can you help me? Can you help? Self-Helpless! Can you help? Can you help me? Can you help? Self-Helpless! Can you help? Can you help me? Can you help? Self-Helpless!
Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Self-Helpless. I'm Kelsey Cook.
I'm Delaney Fisher.
And Taylor Tomlinson could not make it this episode. I just said her full name so formally.
Taylor Tomlinson.
Taylor Tomlinson. I think it's because we just said our full names in the intro.
Yes.
Anyway, Tay can't make it this episode, but we're joined by an incredible guest. She's such a brilliant comedian, and her special is called Self-Help Me, and it's on YouTube, so you can go watch it for free. What a perfect title of a special to have as a guest.
Be more perfect. Yeah.
Self-Helpless.
I just appreciated how much of herself she really shared in this episode. She really opened up about a lot of stuff.
Yes.
A lot of failures, mental health issues. I mean, everything. It was I really appreciated how open and honest she was.
So great. So it's Liz Miele, everybody. She's great. And here is our episode with her. All right. Welcome to the show, Liz Miele, everybody. Yay.
Yay. That's our sound effect.
I was hoping for maybe some I don't know, glitter or something. It's women that host it. I was expecting tampons to fly out or something, but this is fine. I mean, I'll accept it.
We just do a hard Kegel and shoot one at you.
Yeah, there you go.
What have you been doing during quarantine if that's not what you show your guests?
Truly. I mean, what a waste of
tampon art.
Let's do it again, ladies.
Crap.
Do it again.
From the top.
From the top.
That's the new WAP. From the top. Shoot a tampon out. Oh boy. We've lost all of our
Coming in
listeners.
hot. Yeah.
If anybody's still listening, great.
And click.
So Liz, you and I know each other through stand-up, and you have an amazing special called Self-Help Me. And we talked about how you'd be a great fit for an episode of the podcast. But before we get into your special and kind of your background as a comedian who's into self-help, can you share one of your favorite quotes?
Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, it's dork factor. I have Post-its all over my wall. You can't see it, but I have these everywhere. I probably have 100 quotes because I just, before Instagram, we had to do it ourselves.
Yes.
I love that.
You know? So now you could just save them, and then a friend's having a bad day and you're like, wait, I think hurt people. And you send it out and you're like a hero and you're like, you don't even need to talk to her because she's dealing with her own shit. But before that, such a dork. And sometimes you just need that, that little thing that just kind of gets you going and it's succinct. So I literally went to my wall and I was like, what are ones that I've been thinking about lately? And so I did. I pulled some stuff off my wall. But I think this one is perfect for right now. So it's basically, if you're not prepared to be wrong, you'll never come up with anything original. And it just, it's Sir Ken Robinson. To me, I feel like that in one for stand-up that just applies to just how you create. We know that you have to bomb and make mistakes and just kind of flounder and really just be okay with looking almost unprofessional or just not together to get to the crux of what is funny and what you're really trying to say and what's important to you. But on a larger note, what's happening with cancel culture and people not allowing adults to make mistakes. There's a difference between being a monster and getting away with stuff for 40 years and being somebody that's still learning because this world is constantly changing, that we're in a weird place where we're not allowing people to make mistakes and penalizing them. So it's going to hurt creativity if you don't allow people to fuck up publicly, especially since life is more public than it's ever been. Right. So I think both as people that speak and say craziness all the time in a really raw way, both as a podcast people and comedians, but also just as a human, I should be able to say something and be like, oh, I didn't know that. Oh, I know that now. If you're an ignorant and you're fine being in your ignorance, but I actually think most people just don't know. And if you shout at them or take away their lives when they were just going with the knowledge they have, that doesn't really enlist people to learn and get better and grow as people. And I think we tell kids they're allowed to make mistakes, and then we tell adults they're not. So I don't know. To me, that applies so much both as a creative person, but just as what's kind of going on with this like lynch mob mentality and how we treat people both online and in person.
Totally. Yeah. Oh, I just love that you have a quote wall. Like my heart soars. Can you just keep sharing them? We love multiple quotes. Go for it.
I took another one. This one is success consists of going from failure to failure without loss of enthusiasm. And that's Churchill. And to me, I mean, again, that just applies to us as, I mean, I've been failing upward for 18 years. Like, people are starting to kind of know who I am and know my comedy, but one, I don't look my age. So when people find out.
Have you been doing comedy for 18 years?
Oh yeah. Exactly. Nobody knows. Like I'm 35 years old. Like people don't know my age. I don't look at both your faces. Pick it up, ladies.
I'm like, you're 25.
Yeah. I'll tell you my skincare regimen.
Yes, please. That's what the rest of the episode will be devoted to. I'm sorry. It's your own fault for being a witch. What is happening?
Sometimes there's benefits to being a cat lady. Nobody talks about it. They're just like, you're a loser. And I'm like, I'm a loser that's going to look amazing forever.
Holy shit.
Yeah, I started stand-up when I was 16. So in a lot of ways, like my community kind of knows because I've been in New York for most of it. And I had a lot of early success in my career in the sense that I worked a lot and I got on TV early. But for whatever reason, some of it I think was my own emotional immaturity and some comedic immaturity. I just never popped off the way most people would with the early success that I had. And I went through my bitter phase. I'm over it. I went through the woe is me phase. But I just started just doing whatever I needed to do because I just love comedy and I didn't really care what level of success I got. I just wanted to be able to work and do it. So it is kind of weird that I'm pushing almost 20 years and I don't look my age. It's a little sad. My career doesn't match how long I've been doing it, but I do think my ability to both work, but also I would say my skill level, I would like to think matches my years.
By the way, Liz is an incredible comedian. Like, please go follow. What's your Instagram handle real quick?
At Liz Miele.
At Liz Miele. Please go follow her. I mean, the stand-up videos you post are so incredible. I quoted one of them to you when I did your online show because it stuck with me so much. Like you're just so original and so funny. Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate it. So I think that, if I can be like the thing that I've kind of garnered both for, every self-help book that I've read that's made me kind of deal with my so-called failures is that if I would have gotten the success I had hoped for when things were really going well 4, 5, 6 years into my career, I wouldn't be the comic I am today. And I know that. Yeah. So I know for a fact, and I can see how it works, which is if you do it at this level and people said, this is amazing, this is the best, you stay at that level. There's no reason to push yourself. But if you at this level and people go, it's not good enough, you keep pushing and you keep pushing. Right. And so because people kept saying it wasn't good enough, I was like, well, then I need to get better. And I'm now at a place where now I'm not still searching for approval. A nice thing about social media is that people are now discovering my first album from almost 7 years ago. And they're like, this is amazing. And I was like, I knew it was amazing. I'm starting to get the self-esteem I should have had 7 years ago. Cause now I'm getting the validation for it. But it was a little funny where creatively, I am actually really happy I didn't get the success I so much wanted, as well as on a maturity level, I was chasing approval. Every TV credit, everything that I got was basically, you're good enough. And I had to find that on my own because I wasn't getting it from an outside source. So I don't even know if I would have been happy if I had the success that I got. And I know I wouldn't have been mentally stable, if I'm being very frank, because I wasn't mentally stable then. And I went through a long phase of not being in the right headspace. So honestly, that quote really sticks with me just because every failure has actually made me grow. And I've had to learn, like I'm the really dorky friend in my group that when something bad happens, I can now spin it into a positive, and it's become like my skill set. So the first little baby like failure is positivity, is any thumbs down, any hate comments, anybody shitting on you, I get excited. So for me, if I see it on YouTube or Instagram, do you know what that means? Something's going viral. It's no longer your fans or your friends or your family seeing it, because they already love you. They're not going to say, well, women aren't funny, or,
Right.
this is garbage. So all of a sudden you go, ooh, this is on the explore page. Ooh, somebody recommended this. Somebody sent this to a friend. It's going outside the circle. And that just means it's growing. And then we all know, because of the algorithm, they can't tell the difference between hate and like. So every hate comment just pushes it forward.
Yes.
It just makes it,
Right.
truly, some of my most viral videos is because people did not enjoy them. Did not like them. It's just a bunch of women aren't funny and this is garbage and I can't believe this is comedy. But what happens is the haters see it. They can't tell the difference. Then it pushes it to the people that like it. And so maybe the first 100,000 views is this is garbage, but the next 500,000 views are, I can't believe I've never did know this woman. I just discovered in comic. So I started this podcast during the pandemic with my friend Maria. And like, we were doing all right in the beginning, and then we started getting some thumbs down. And she's so funny. She'll be like, we're getting thumbs down. And I was like, that's good. And she's like, why? And I was like, because they're no longer discovering it because they're fans of us. It's people from the outside world. And that's great. That means we're expanding. And she's like, what's wrong with you? She's like, I'm proud of you, but what's wrong with you? But it's become trained where like my initial thought isn't, oh, somebody doesn't like me. My thought is, ooh, where's this going to end up? Who's going to see this because this guy that doesn't like me saw it? So I've learned in different ways to kind of not even just spin it because it is truthful, but to kind of be excited that, okay, this didn't, and like to experiment. Like because I never went the traditional path, almost everything I do is an experiment, and I have no problem failing in front of people. Like I have friends when it comes to social media, they'll post something and it'll get no likes. It'll get like 7 likes and they're like, oh, I got to delete it. Why? Because if something goes well 2 days from now, people are going to go back and they're going to discover it. And maybe your people just aren't there yet to discover how great that picture is or that video or whatever.
Right.
So 100%, there's people discovering videos from 5-10 years ago today because I left them up. They had 100 views from 10 years ago, and now they have 40,000 views because I left it there. And that's actually the beauty of the internet in general. But I think it's all, I, at least in my time, and I think everybody that does something for a long time have just known that it's a cumulative. I can't say words well. Cumulative?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's coming out. But you see it more and more. And so my stand-up is no longer just a moment in time, but it builds off each other, both the skill set, but also what joke is going to resonate with people at what time. Just like the fact that you'll do a joke and it's a little bit before its time, or the right people didn't see it. And then for whatever reason, people discover something, it goes viral, and it's completely out of your hands.
Right. Oh, you are a wise owl of the forest, Liz. I'm such a big fan of finding that way to put the positive spin on it. And I think those words are very needed for all our listeners, whether, you're in comedy or not. Can you expand, if you're comfortable, a little bit on, you said that at one point you were feeling like you weren't mentally stable, but that you feel that way now. Are you able to talk about what you were going through, what got you over the hump into where you are now?
Yeah, I think we all do this, or at least people that put their job or their creative, whatever they're doing creative as a something that defines them. I think I've always had low self-esteem. I've always had low self-worth, and comedy was a thing that I both discovered because I loved it. But as I got positive reinforcement, like I started when I was young, I pretty much like looked like this, just like bigger cheeks. I don't know why they're more sunken in these days.
I was admiring your cheekbones. You have fantastic cheekbones. My God, like natural contour.
Thank you. I haven't worn makeup in 7 months. Keep going.
That's why your skin looks so good.
Thank you. No chemicals, just drinking water. Not true. Okay. I like to lie to people. I'm just like, oh, it's just natural. I used to do that all the time. I'd be like, it's just natural, but it was all birth control. It was 100% birth. I was like, I just eat right. I'm just a good person, but it was just mostly birth control.
Just a good heart. Yeah.
yeah. It's just like, you just have to exude kindness, then your skin responds. But because I felt so low about myself and I loved comedy and I was getting attention because I was a young comic, there's not, especially almost 20 years ago, there wasn't a lot of females, let alone young females. And I've always had a really dark sense of humor and I was always a writer. So I just kind of stood out and I got into clubs early. I was doing homework at bars while waiting to go on. I would pack peanut butter and jelly. I would like camp out and just try to get as much stage time as possible. There's so many ridiculous stories about when I was like a 16, 17-year-old doing comedy. But so especially because people would say, oh, you're really smart, which I never felt like I was smart. I'm dyslexic and I've always had like an inferiority complex because of that about my intelligence. So I always just felt like I was tricking people. I wanted to be funny, but like they always say, like early on, your content doesn't really match your expertise or what you think is funny. So you always think like you're not good enough, even when you're getting good responses on stage. So I was getting positive attention in this area and it was like the only place I was getting positive attention. And it just became a little bit of a monster, which is if I'm not being successful in this area, I'm not worthy of love. I'm not good enough. People aren't going to care about me. People aren't going to want to be around me. I've always struggled to make friends. I've always struggled to feel like I can be myself. I've always been a people pleaser. I'm only in the last couple of years have learned to kind of set boundaries with that. And even with the boundaries I've set, it's like 2 days of guilt. And then I have to like truly like journal. I'm allowed to say no. There's no reason to move someone to California if I don't even know their last name. Like just like crazy.
Right.
Like my family's actually like, my parents are really kind people. We've always been like, give the shirt off your back, even if you don't have another shirt to put on kind of people. And I've really had to learn why I do that and how detrimental that can be. Well, also, I like being a nice person. I want to continue to be nice, but how do I do that without sacrificing my happiness and stuff? So I think both bending over backwards for others and then also putting all my value in my success and how people saw me as a comic, it's unmaintainable. And people can tell you that, but it's not until you kind of almost burn out and hit like kind of a rock bottom. I lost a relationship because of how kind of crazy I was. I definitely think I pushed away friends, like potential friends, like people that I was starting to get close to, but I was just too like in my head. And like, I was always that person. And we all kind of know that person that like you see somebody get something and they can't let it go. They're just like, why would they get that? I don't even they just started stand up 3 days ago. And I'm definitely cuter and funnier. Like I was that person for a while. And my friends would try to be like, dude, it's not about you. And I was like, of course it's not about me, but it is. It is about me. And like just being crazy. And I went through that for a couple of years and I'm really grateful. Like I'm grateful I got dumped. Like I can actually look back and be like, that was the best thing that ever happened to me. I hit some kind of career and relationship rock bottom, got me into therapy, started reading different types of self-help books. Like I think my dad trained me to be like Tony Robbins, Stephen Covey, like that typical, like how can you be more efficient and how can you get what you want from people? Like that was like, my dad's like that old school generation of like, how do you trick people into liking you? Yeah. And I was like, that's what you do. You just trick people. And then and that's the weird thing is when you think you're tricking people into liking you, like how to win friends and influence people, where I'm just like, I look you in the eye, I'm like, Kelsey, anyway, how was your day? Like just kind of, you don't ever feel like you're connecting with people because you feel like a robot. And I've always felt like a robot socially. But as I moved towards healing myself emotionally, understanding my emotions, expressing my emotions, not bullying myself, and got more like power of now, emotional intelligence stuff, like more the kind of psychology self-help as opposed to trickery self-help, sorry if that's offensive.
No, I don't think so.
I started to feel better. I'm actually rereading The Power of Now because we talked about it on my podcast with my friend, and that's how we became friends. I was reading it when I was 21. She was on a show. I thought she was super funny, and we all went out to get Chinese food, and I didn't really know her. I just thought she was funny, and I don't know how it came up, but I had just finished it and she had just started it, and we just got all dorky, and then we became friends. And so we decided to talk about it on the podcast, and I was like, I haven't read it since I was 21, and like rereading it, I actually think it defines my stand-up, which is weird
Really?
because I did not apply it as a human. I definitely did not I picked up a couple of stuff, but I still struggled emotionally. But when I reread it, I'm like, this is what I do at my stand-up, because it's all about like understanding, being in the now and understanding your emotions and picking apart your reactions to stuff. And that's almost what I do with my stand-up. So if I am, I have a joke for my special of a woman wanting to cut in line because all she had was a greeting card at CVS, and being like, yeah, of course, you can totally cut in line. And then as we're waiting for the person that's being checked out to leave, she's just like, oh, my best friend's mother died. And I'm like, cool, okay. And was like, sorry to hear that. And then she's like, yeah, when my own mother died. And just like being like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, why I let you cut in line. I don't want to hear about your open mic sad story. Like just this, and like, clearly I didn't say that, but the rage inside of me felt that. And after she got online, I started laughing. I'm like a crazy person. I start laughing and I started writing it down immediately. And I was like, why am I such a psychopath? Like, why does that kind of connection, and people, now they call it emotional labor, like that, like, when you, like, women deal with it all the time where people dump on them, or like if I would call one of you and just be like, fucking this thing happened to me, like didn't even ask about your day. I'm just like dumping my bad day on you.
We did an episode on that, on emotional labor. Yeah.
Yeah. I just learned about it like a year ago. And I was like, yes, that is such a like pet peeve of mine. And I used to do it all the time, by the way. And now that I know about it, I'm like, what assholes? Like now the tables have turned. And I was like, I would never. But like, I'm really sensitive to it, especially because I think when you're like, you don't have boundaries, people take advantage of it. They kind of, glom onto your time. But it was so interesting. And I spent like 3 days being like, why am I so angry at this woman? And it's now like a 3.5 minute bit in my set. But like, I can see how, because I never really understood my emotions, I couldn't really identify them. I grew up with a dad that said, control your emotions. That was the mantra in my house, control your emotions. And then he raised 5 kids that can't identify or understand their emotions. And and I still struggle with it. Like I have to sit down and journal and be like, am I sad? Is that why I'm being grumpy right now and being a bitch to everybody? Like I still have to kind of do the work. Or like right now, like I will go, somebody will be like, how are you? And I'll be like, I think I'm sad. I don't know why, but I'm pretty sure I'm sad.
You have to dig a little bit.
Yeah, I still have to dig. But now with my stand-up, like, it actually really helps me emotionally to be like, oh, I'm really angry. Well, why am I angry? Well, because this is something my father used to say to me and it made me feel bad about myself. And so when I hear it in the wild, it triggers me and it takes me on a path. And like, I don't know, there's something about the power of now that made you kind of understand your emotions, acknowledge your emotions, and then stop reacting to them. Because it's going to take a really bad day now for you to get the reaction. I was definitely a reactor 10 years ago. And now with therapy and self-help books and practice and what have you, I might have an internal reaction, but it's very rare that I have an external reaction. It has to be a really bad situation.
Right. With emotional labor, I've mentioned on the podcast before, being mindful of like using somebody's minutes. If your friends and family are phone plans or whatever, to be aware of how many of their emotional minutes you're using. And, we all need to lean on friends and family from time to time where you might be taking up a larger part of the conversation in that pie chart. But I'm the same as you, Liz. And I think this happens a lot on planes where my instinct, if I sit next to somebody who immediately wants to talk about their life story with me or chat about what I do for a living, where I'm going, I get very kind of like wet cat, where I'm like, oh God, I'm about to, this is about to be a 5-hour flight. I don't want to engage with this person and have them think that I want to converse with them for 5 hours. Like if I knew for sure that they expected it to be a 10-second exchange of like, hey, so, what are you heading to Philly for? Whatever, blah, blah, blah. But I am afraid to almost give off too warm of an energy to a stranger on a plane, because I don't want that feeling of being a social conversational hostage. Of
Oh
like,
yeah, and
you have
you're
to do that.
literally trapped. You're trapped.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah,
of course, my guilt comes from the fact that I don't want this person to think I'm an asshole for anywhere from 5 hours to 10 years. Where like you hear those stories where they're just like, you know, I met Chris Rock 15 years ago and he was the dick. And you're like, was he a dick or is he busy? Like, fuck off. Like, but my thing is always that fear of like, I'm not the perfect version. And then these people are forever going to hate me. And then I'm going to have to hate myself. And, or I try not to like stick up for myself online because it just like, who the fuck are you to judge me? But also this is a waste of my time. But I still have it inside me where like, I'll read something and they're just like, well, I don't know. And then you're just like, ah, and then you have to be like, they don't matter. They don't matter.
Yeah.
It's that work is like 15 years
Oh
to
my
go
God.
from like to like feeling like you have to be there for somebody, even a stranger, to not being there, but feeling like they're going to judge you forever, to also being like, you know what, if that's how they feel about me, that's how they feel about me. And that's not my problem.
Right. Especially if you're a more public person, there is that pressure of like, that you always in every situation have to just like radiate perfection. And it's like, you don't hold any other humans up to that standard, but like the Chris Rock situation is so perfect. It's somebody like that. Maybe he was a dick. Maybe he wasn't in this weird situation, but forever now that person will spread that story of like, oh, he was a dick.
Yeah. What's that quotable that we just had that was like, what somebody thinks about you is none of your business? I love that.
Yeah.
Love that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, well,
Add that
who
to
cares?
the quote wall.
On to the next.
It's like one of the harder things. And weirdly enough, it's less with strangers. It's my family. That's the hardest thing is like, there's so much toxic dynamics in my family that I just have to be okay with the fact that someone thinks I'm selfish or somebody thinks, oh, Liz isn't coming to this reunion. Must be nice that she's so busy. Is it nice that I'm busy or am I literally trying to pay my rent? Like, you know, but you get to a point where you're like, if they don't know by now that none of this is personal and I'm doing the best I can to show up for this family, it's never going to change. And I'm not going to give up my career or, you know, my happiness to make somebody else finally see me the way I want to when it's so fleeting to begin with.
Yeah.
Right.
Good. I have a question just about your career, Liz. You know, because you kind of mentioned like, you know, several years ago you were, you know, getting TV stuff, or maybe you expected for it to take off in a certain direction, or maybe the comedy community expected you to take off in a certain direction. What was there like a moment where you said, all right, I'm going to focus on something different, or I'm going to take my career into my own hands? Like, was there a change where you were seeking kind of the external validation and they were like, you know what, I'm going to focus on what I can control with my career? Can you kind of talk about that, if that shift happened or what that looked like for you?
I mean, I know exactly when it happened. I was I was 10 years in and I wasn't okay. I lived with, do you know Carmen Lynch?
Yes.
She's a New York comic. We lived together for 4 years, and her career was taking off. And like I said, I had broken up my boyfriend. I had, at the time I was living with strangers, but eventually it turned into two friends, which was Carmen and my still roommate, Chris. And I think she picked me up off the ground emotionally every morning. Like literally we would sit in the kitchen. She'd be like, how are you doing? And I would just like bawl, and she'd be like, it's going to get better. And I was like, is it? And I give her so much credit because I was not okay to be around, and she was doing great and I was not. And I couldn't handle, and it had nothing to do. I was extremely happy for her and I could show up as a good friend and be happy for her. But we had started at the same time, and I just felt like everything I tried and everything I went to do, every failure just kept going this way, and we would be doing the same thing and she would go that way. And I never held it. I feel good about my personality in the sense that I never held that against her, and I always could show up for her, but I couldn't see the light at the tunnel for me. And the fact that we had very similarities in our experiences and it wasn't working out for me just made me feel like I kept doing stuff wrong. And so she was there for me emotionally, but she was really like, I know that it's going to get better, but you need to figure out how it's going to get better. And the real turning point was my friend Amanda, who's not a comic. We grew up together, went to high school together, and I would call her also crying. I was really fun to be around during this time. Super great friend. I've had friends for 15, 20, 25 years. And I don't know how they went through some of the phases with me, because they were all great. But Amanda was interesting because she was like, if you're so unhappy, why don't you quit? And I would get furious with her, like truly angry with her, because fuck you. Like, what do you, like, that's not how it works. Like, just because you're unhappy, like, I'm not unhappy. I know I'm crying every time I call you, but I'm not unhappy. I love this. And I just sounded crazy, but I wasn't wrong. And she made me think about, because I was really mad at her. I was like, she just doesn't get it. I'm not going to bring my comedy problems to Amanda. But it made me go, well, what is the problem? Because I do love stand-up. Not once have I ever really thought about quitting because of stand-up. I love writing. I love the problem solving aspect of it. I love creating. I love performing. Nothing about the art of stand-up makes me sad. The industry does. The industry feels personal. The industry has been holding me down underwater in my mind for so long. And every time I think I'm going to come back up and like breathe some air, they're like, nah. And it was destroying my insides. And it kind of just clicked. I was like, okay, what do I really want? Fuck the industry. What do I want? I just want to be what I defined as a real comic. And I think everybody has their own definition. But my dream was to come out with an album and to be a headliner comic. And if that's my dream, I'm pretty sure I can do that on my own. So I started making a list of stuff that to me defined a real comic. And from that list, what can I do on my own? And so there was like record labels and stuff. And I knew somebody that was interested, but then I just started talking to comics that had done it on their own. And I was like, I think I can do this on my own. And I had an hour material. And what's funny about it is and this is where like you start to see like, it does feel a little bit for a crazy person personal, but like I decided to make an album. Me and Carmen recorded it we both did an hour in Boston. The first one, first show, it like rained and like nobody showed up. Second show was good, but like I was off and there were some weird audio issues. So I was like, fuck that. It's not good enough. I'm not going to do it. A couple months later, I do a show at the Stand. I do a one-off. Nailed it. Like felt amazing. Felt great. Get the audio. There's like popping and skipping in like two different sections. And I went to every audio person you could think of. They couldn't fix it. They could not figure out how to fix it. And there was no backup show. And I was devastated. I remember I had a boyfriend at the time when this was going, and he's like, well, maybe something. And I was like so mean to him. I was just like, you don't get it. Like I was a real terror for a while, guys. But I was so devastated that I had decided to do something on my own and it still didn't work out. I was like, what the fuck? That what I decided was to scrap that entire hour. And I built that hour over like 6 years. Like some bits were a year old, some bits were 3 years old, some bits were as old as 6 years. And what I decided is like, I'm just going to fucking get rid of that whole hour. For some reason, it's not good enough. I'm going to just write a new hour. And when that hour's ready, I'm going to record my first hour. So that's what I did. I scrapped everything except for I think maybe 2 of my more recent jokes that I liked. It took me about a year and a half. I wrote a new hour, was super paranoid. So I got like the best guy in audio to do it. I literally was like, I want to be labbed. I want you to mic over here. I want there to be a backup over there. I spent way too much money because I was just like, I'm paranoid. I did 2 shows, and that's what my first hour is called Emotionally Exhausting, which I now put on for free on YouTube. But it was the best decision for a lot of reasons, in the sense that I learned so much about myself. Like I learned how like diligent of a writer I am, how fast of a writer I can be. My stand-up and my voice was really, is congruent the right word? It was just all in line because it was who I was in that year and a half, as opposed to, we all morph as comics and people over 6 years. So this hour was like an hour, like it took a year and a half. This was like the most recent version of Liz. And then, I took a PR class. I decided I had lost my manager around that time. That was also a lot of the reason I was crying. So I decided, and I couldn't get another manager. I was like, if I can't get a manager and agent, I'll be my own manager. And if social media's whole job is to shout your name from the rooftop and represent you, I'll just learn about social media. So like, again, this is almost 10 years ago. Gary Vaynerchuk wasn't even a name yet. He wrote a book called Crush It. He was like, nobody was really teaching you about social media or talking about it. It was a very thin book. And me and my roommate read it, Chris, who I still live with, not in comedy. And we just started talking about it. And then I probably read 4 more books that year. I took this PR class. Cambry Cruz now has a club in Queens called QED. But when she just opened it, she had done a bunch of stuff in PR. So she taught a bunch of stuff. I love that your cat is just in the background. Like
She will not stop.
I also
vying for
gesticulate. So I am like a giant cat toy of a person. Like I'm sure she's just like going to attack your computer at some point. Oh, she's so fat. I love her.
is the sweetest.
But I got obsessive about representing myself and learning about social media. And that's honestly, that's from 8-9 years ago. And that's defined my career. Same thing. Like, so I did my own PR and my joke feminist sex position went viral. And that was 100% strategic of like sending it to feminist blogs, having any comic that I thought had a feminist skew, asking them to like retweet it and stuff. It ended up being in all these, one feminist blog picked it up. Then all the other ones picked it up. Then these viral kind of websites picked it up. I ended up doing something for Upworthy because of it. But it was like bigger than any TV credit I had. It's still how people know who I am. I think it has like 2 million views now, which with how things are going viral now, that's not a big deal. But from 7 years ago, it was.
Sure. Yeah.
And it's what kind of put my name on the map. And it's the reason I started headlining more. It's the reason industry knew who I was. I started getting auditions, even though I didn't have managers and agents. But it just taught me that I could take things into my own hands and I could make a name for myself without being on TV, without having a manager. And if I want to do something, figuring out how I can do it on my own. So to your point, like it was like hitting some kind of rock bottom, but also taking my dreams and getting it down to get rid of the clutter. Because I was the type of person that I would see somebody on the cover of Golf Digest and be like, why not me? Like, I don't play golf, but I still like, why didn't they even think of me? Like, I was fucking crazy. And then when I really pulled back and I was like, well, that's just because I want attention. What is it that I really want? If I'm into stand-up because I love stand-up, what is it that I like about it? And what are my real goals? And doing that kind of recentered me and made me start shooting for stuff that I want to do and making opportunities for myself and controlling it in a way to the point where like even now I can turn away, you know how we are, like if it's $9, we'll go and do it, but it doesn't feel good. You're like, this isn't worth my time. I'm losing money. How, like it would make you either nervous or angry or resentful. And now I'm in a place where I'm like, I wrote it on, I think a year ago before all this stuff happened. I again, that kind of weird, crazy mindset that I have. I was like, if I died on the way to this gig and someone found out how much money I was making, would I be ashamed? And that's how I decide if I take a gig now.
I love it. Oh my God. I mean, that's easily one of the best things I've heard all year. That's
a good litmus test.
You just changed my entire career.
I hope so, because we're freelancers and it gets to a point, and I get if you're like an artist, maybe you're not leaving, but like we first of all, you just have to know that most comics die because of, suicide, drug overdose, or because of car crashes. So we're an unhealthy brand that we're lonely and we're sad and we have bad habits. And, I'm always driving when I'm tired. And so I would get really, and like, I don't drink coffee unless I'm going to die on the road. And I found myself like almost falling asleep at the wheel and being like, how dumb would I feel if I was doing Bumblefuck, New Jersey for like $200? And this is how I didn't even like the gig. This was a shitty gig. This gig made me feel bad about myself. So then on the other side of it, I started taking risks where I was like, what a cool way to die. Like I'm a very scared person. I took like Uber scooters in Thailand when I was doing shows in Thailand. And I was like, I'd be okay with this being in my obituary. Like, it's kind of cool. Like, I kind of be like, yeah, that's a cool way to die. So
that's fantastic. Yeah.
That's good. You could ask yourself about anything that you're doing. If I died like this, would I be okay with it?
Yeah.
Okay, sure. Let's do it. Yeah,
exactly. And it's also like really a good litmus test for like who you spend your time with, because that same people pleaser always feeling guilty. I was like, if I knew I was going to die tomorrow, would I be happy that I saw this person, or would I be like, that's not who I would have chose? And so making more time for my family, making more time for my close friends, saying no to the shitty gig, and then just staying home and just feeling good about myself so that I'm not angry when I do a gig that I do want to do. Like just kind of being a little bit more in tune with what I actually want to do and not feeling like these invisible powers are making me feel like I have to do stuff, which is of no fault of anybody except for maybe my parents. But a little bit me, kind of them.
What isn't their fault, truly?
Shout out to childhood trauma.
Yeah. I love them. They know what they did.
Yeah.
They did the best they could. But
You know what you did.
yeah, we've had the talk. But
Sure.
there is a part of me that's like, it's not, if you ask a favor of me and I feel guilty about saying no to it, that's not your fault. That's my fault. You know what I mean? That's the work that I have to do. So I would always be like, I'd always do favors for people or help people. But in certain situations, I'd feel really resentful. And now I'm angry at somebody. They don't know why I'm angry. It's not their fault they crossed the boundary. They don't know anything about it. And it's taken me a long time to undo a lot of really bad habits I've had since I was a kid. And it's kind of crazy. I'm like, I was telling somebody the other day, like, I'm so grateful this pandemic happened when I was in my 30s. I'm just, I'm more secure in who I am and my career and stuff, but I would not have been okay. Like, I would legit mentally not be okay if this was happening when I was like 21, 22, 23. Like,
Right.
and I have actually a lot of empathy for a lot of college kids and people in the beginning of their careers. Because this is a real blow, even though it's clearly not their fault. This is a huge blow to anybody's life goals, feel, and like, the way society makes it feel like if you don't accomplish everything by the time you're 30, you're a failure. Like, that's a big part of, I've had to talk to my little sister who just turned 30 this year to be like, it's a little bit society, a little bit our family, but you gotta undownload that program because you're going to torture yourself.
Mm-hmm. Well, and we've mentioned on here too, trying to get rid of that toxic way of thinking in this year in particular of people going, if you don't start your own business, if you don't just crush 2020 because now you've got the time, then what a waste. It's like, nope, you gotta get that shit out of there. And I totally fell victim to it early on where I was like, well, I should use all this time to do these things. And that's fine if you do genuinely feel motivated and you want to tackle new projects and create things, that's awesome. But I think we all need to continue to remind ourselves that this is traumatizing every day, that this still continues. It's traumatizing and it takes a lot of time and energy to just feel okay every day right now. Yeah. And so if you don't accomplish what you wanted to accomplish that week, that's okay because we're all dealing with so much stuff.
I honestly like, I'm a workaholic. I mean, we all are. Yeah. Like, and there's benefits to it, but I've also had to learn, like, do I really want to be doing this or am I avoiding something? And like, even being like, hey, you can still do it, but at least acknowledge that you're avoiding something, or at least journal today so that you could, like, I see some of my toxic habits and sometimes I just kind of talk to myself. I'm like, you can still do it. You can still be crazy, but let's acknowledge why we're being crazy. Like, let's talk about it. So that kind of like, I know I hit the ground running. I was in Europe, I was in London, and I was supposed to continue to do a European tour and, had to get sent home. And I was with my friend Maria, who I have the podcast with. And I was like almost getting on the plane being like, we should start a podcast. like we should do something. And we did. Like, I came home within 3 days, we were recording it. Within 2 weeks, the first couple of episodes were out, and it was the right move to make. But like, I know for a fact that was fear. Like, that was absolute fear of, I've never gone more than like a week and a half without doing stand-up. And don't know how to really make money, or I don't know how to identify myself without stand-up. Even with all the self-work I've done, it's like, I changed my bio on Twitter to be stay-at-home comedian. Like, it's still like, you can't take that out. Like, it's still something I have to work on, but I still define myself by my career. And I think there is a lot of toxicity to that. And I can still see it, almost 20 years in, but I feel like in the beginning it was, oh shit, I'm not going to be making money and this is scary. And then in the middle, I had to take a breather and be like, am I okay? Like, am I going to be okay? Like, fuck financially. Like, am I going to be okay if this, because at first it was like, this is going to last 2 months. Isn't this crazy? And then when we all realized it was going to be more, I was like, I need to be okay if this is the next 2 years of my life. And what am I going to do both financially and emotionally to be okay with this? And then checking in on my friends that are very similar to me and being like, where are you financially? Where are you emotionally? So me, Adrienne Appalucci, who's a comic here, and Carmen Lynch, we all have like a group chat. We like FaceTimed once a week to be like, are you okay? Are you getting unemployment? Are you okay? Like, you know what I mean? Who got a new pet? Like who's doing all the things to see if they can stay sane? But then just being like, okay, like brainstorming, like what can we do to make money? What do you feel comfortable? Are we going to do outdoor shows? Like having a little bit of a group of people in the same headspace to feel a little less crazy, because I think even like my older sister has 3 kids. She pretty much had to quit her job and be a full-time mom, which was never what she wanted to do. And like, I think moms had to go through that, like, you know, online learning. I have a couple of friends that are like, it's the worst thing that's ever happened to me is online learning and trying to corral kids in front of a computer at pretty much any age. And then you have people that were in the beginning of their career. Like my little brother, my youngest brother is 24, 25, and he's a paralegal. And now he's just going to Fordham, and like just him being like, I'm going to quit my job and go to school. I hope that's the right move. like, you know, who knows? Like, it's just this weird time where the adults, like, this is the first time my parents have been sympathetic. Like,
Oh, wow.
you know, like they've always been supportive of my dad up until probably about 5 years ago, when I started to like really kind of be more financially stable, was always kind of scheming. He's like, you could do this part-time thing, or I heard this cousin's doing this and they're making money on the side. And I was like, good for Ian. Like, you know what I mean? You're like, good for them. Like, I don't understand what that has to do with me.
Right.
But this is the first time that like I cried on the phone with my mom. I was just like, I don't know. I don't have any skills. Like, and like, you can't, like, what am I going to become, a receptionist? I haven't done that in 15 years. like, I don't even know, like, I don't type fast. Like, I don't even know if I can. I was making more money than I was in my starter job. So now it's like, it would be a giant step backwards, and those jobs don't exist right now. So it was the first time that like, they didn't have suggestions. They were just like, I don't know. Like, this is shitty. Like, this is shitty and nobody knows what to do.
Yeah. And just not, with none of us having any time frame of when things will be normal, it's like, well, how do you plan then? It's hard enough to pivot in a career or make changes when you know there's a deadline of, okay, well, I just have to do this for this long. But that's this whole other level of difficulty with COVID, is truly not knowing how long it will last, how long it will take for things to get back to normal. But before we wrap up, can you share, so your special is called Self-Help Me. Can you share, I believe it's the story you posted about the self-help books, and just something that I'm sure our listeners would love that is very self-help related.
Yeah. So mental illness runs in both sides of my family. So both my grandmothers were mentally ill. They were in and out of mental hospitals. So it's like, it's in my family. It's a part of me. Got a lot of issues. My family has issues. So my other brother, Sammy, was diagnosed with bipolar 1 when he was 19. Had a couple of psychotic breaks, just some fun episodes where he was like stabbing trees, talking to Jesus, being Jesus, just, you know, run-of-the-mill psychosis. And the positiveness is that it runs in my family, and we were able to identify it because he was being a dick and he was being crazy, and anybody else would just be like, my brother's an asshole now. Like, you know, you go off to a big college kid, you go off to college and become a dick. But he's like one of my best friends. Like, he used to go on the road with me. We would talk every week. And I remembered telling my mom, I was like, something's off with Sam. Like this. And I actually, because I knew about the mental illness in my family, I've always suffered with depression, depressive bouts and stuff. I was like, I always thought I was going to lose my mind. And I don't really know much about my grandmothers. They died before I was born. So through Sam getting sick, we kind of learned that my grandma, at least one of them, probably had bipolar 1, if not schizophrenia. But I always thought that would happen to me. And whenever I got really kind of crazy, I was like, this is it. I'm losing my mind. Like, I have jokes throughout almost my full 18 years of just these kind of like anti-fantasies, nightmares of me just kind of being a homeless man yelling at chickens, you know, on the subway, just like being like this level of crazy people see and exaggerate. And then it happened to Sam. And like, literally, like, I've always had empathy for people on the subway that clearly have some kind of mental illness, but like my brother was exhibiting the same behavior. So the story in my special is about when he set fire to all my father's self-help books, which really happened. It happened at 3 a.m.
Oh my God.
And I think this was his third psychotic break, and they kind of saw that he was ramping up, like he was, because it's depression, then it's mania, and then psychotic break. So we started to be able to see that, like, when he gets really like crafty and he's like always got these ideas, it's almost a bad sign. Like anybody else would be like, they're really motivated, and he'd be like, I'm going to build a shed, and we're like, oh no,
Oh no.
oh God. He's got a hammer.
He's going to Lowe's. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh God. So whenever he got really crafty, it was always like, is he inspired or is it heading towards something bad? So they kind of knew to look out for it, but you really don't know when it crosses over. And my brother Sam is like a fun, weird guy normally. So there really is like a fine line when it turns. And so he set all these self-help books on fire. And my mom has dealt with this. She knows how to handle my brother, but I swear to God, she calls me and she was like, I don't know. I was like, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing, buddy? Like, she was just so casual about it. She was like, what are we doing here? And he's like, I'm setting a fire. And she's like, why aren't you using wood? And he's like, we're out. And there's a huge thing of fire. And these are all my father's books. And the joke
the irony, by the way. I mean, it's just like, you can't write this shit. Like,
you can't. You can't. And the whole joke is the fact that my mom was like, it's the sanest thing anyone in our family's ever done. Because we all hate my dad's self-help books. Like, it's just, it's always comes up. I mean, I've been reading them since I was a kid. I mean, and he would use it as leverage. So I remember my best friend from elementary school moved to Tennessee, and I wanted to go visit her. And he said he'd pay for the flight for me to go visit her if I read 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I was 12. What am I being effective about? You know what I mean? I already got good grades. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I'm doing the best I can. But I remember being a kid on a school bus, already don't have friends. My friend moved away. I'm in a new school district and I'm reading this book and I'm like highlighting it. And then he would test me. He's like, what did you learn? And I was like, I got to be more effective. Like, I read like all these books, and I know they had a profound effect on my father. And I actually, we can all make fun of my dad sometimes, but I actually think he instilled this belief that you can always get better and that you should always be growing. And that if there's something you don't like about yourself, you can change it and you don't have to just hate yourself. Like, you can grow. But in some ways, I've gone past that. And now I'm the person being annoying to my dad and being like, there's only so much you could fix with a book. And there's a lot of blind spots where the way I feel about self-help books is you can only fix what you already know is a problem. And so if you have some self-awareness, or if you're open enough that you can read something and acknowledge that this is an issue of yours, great. But how many people do we know, including ourselves, that there's no way for you to know it unless somebody else points it out and really kind of brings your awareness to it. And then even when you have an awareness, it's really hard to fix because these are ingrained habits for God knows how long. Right. And so I'm the one, I mean, he only went for a couple sessions, but I was the one that was like, I think you need therapy.
Yeah.
So I don't know, there's a lot of love-hate relationship with self-help books. And I also think there's a lot of toxicity with them, which is you read them and you're like, yeah, I can do anything. And you're just like, it's how I feel about quotes. You read a quote and you're like, fucking, that's all you need to know. Change the world. And then, you lose, you try stuff, you fail at stuff, things get hard, somebody hurts your feelings, you get triggered, whatever it is that you're trying to work on. And then you kind of go, maybe I don't know enough. And then you read another self-help book and you get that inspiration again. And it becomes this high of I can do anything. And then when you hit reality again, and reality isn't just like these like picture perfect scenarios where it's just like I showed up and I was wearing my power suit and I told them I need a raise. It's like, it's never that concise. There's always so much like complexity to it that these scenarios and these books never really bring into play. Right. And so you just keep reading and you're gaining all the knowledge, but you're not actually doing anything with it. The same way that you can ace the test, but not learn anything.
Sure. It's very, can be very cyclical. And we talk on here about how the self-help industry is this multi-billion dollar industry now because people know that about us, where they go, well, they liked reading this. They feel like they're fixed, but they know they're not. So they're going to read something else, whatever we put out. And I feel like the self-help books that have really, really changed me are the ones I've had to read multiple times. Like I've read The Artist's Way multiple times. I've read The War of Art a couple times because it was like, I need to actually absorb this in a real way, not just go, oop, I feel motivated and like I got that rush and I'm going to truck on to the next book. Sometimes you have to really ingest it and really feel it.
Or study it like you would study a subject. Like you go 4 years to learn how to become a lawyer and then 7 years to become a doctor. Like there's all these things where it's like, you don't read a book and take a test and start doing surgery. Like,
right. I like that you said blind spots. There are a lot of blind spots for sure.
Yeah. And I constantly acknowledge that I still have tons of them. And when somebody points them out, it does not feel good. It doesn't feel good. Yeah. So people do whatever they can to not learn about them. And you have to acknowledge that. And I also acknowledge that you can only take, I remember when I first started therapy, it's been like 9 years. I cried for like 2 of those years. And I remember about 2.5 years in, I was like, can we just have a session where you don't point out what sucks about me? Like that would be awesome. Like I just need a positive one because I was just learning so much about my bad habits and what I would do, both like self-sabotaging, how I was like being manipulative because I was brought up with people that were manipulative and like all these things that I didn't like in my life that other people did, but I was somehow doing unconsciously. And like when you learn that you're doing the thing you hate the most, it is devastating, absolutely devastating. Because also you know about it, but you can't fix it right away. So you just feel like a monster. So I think also you can only fix so many habits at once. So you don't want to learn about them all at once either, or it becomes defeatist. You just feel like, what's the point?
Yeah, for sure. Liz, you're awesome. Thank you so much for
giving us
me, guys. Your time and wisdom. Please plug where people can follow you.
Yeah. So everything is at Liz Miele. I always say like Instagram, I hope you like cat pictures. If not, do not follow me. It is aggressive. I just bought an outfit. Oh my God. I just bought this dinosaur outfit for my cat. So get ready.
Oh my God.
Oh my God. I'll send you guys pictures.
Halloween is upon us.
Oh, it came in the mail and I literally, like my roommate was talking to me. I was like, shut up. The dinosaur outfit's here. I grabbed my cat. I put it on. He's literally trying to tell me about a bad day. I was like, you're wrong. We're having a great day. I was like, let me get her in this outfit and then you'll feel better. So yeah, it's an aggressive amount of cat pictures, but I have my special Self-Help Me, which is free on YouTube. My first hour is also free on YouTube, which is emotionally exhausting to figure out why I am the way I am. And then I have an hour in between those that's on like Spotify and you can buy it or whatever. And then my podcast is called Two Non-Doctors and I do it with Maria Shahada, she's just a brilliant comic. She's American, but she's based out of London.
Okay, cool.
Awesome.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. All right. Bye, Liz.
Bye.
All right. We hope you guys enjoyed listening to Liz. Kind of like you mentioned in the intro, Delaney, she's so open, makes you feel like you can also be, open and flawed. It's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. I love the fact that she finds the silver lining in quote unquote failures and stuff like that. I love the tip of like, when you get a shitty comment on a video, just think, oh, this is really getting out there. How great, right?
It's getting outside of my immediate family
and
friends. Yeah,
I love that. I love
that too.
And her taking control of her career and her life. Like, I eat that shit up. You know.
I do know. Yeah, it was
so good.
It was great. We have an iTunes review of the episode. Do you want to read that?
Yes, this is from Sammy Ray 44. Meatballs, makeup, and healthy relationships. Oh my.
What a great opening.
So good. That's like the Wizard of Oz, right? Meatballs, makeup, and healthy relationships. Oh my. Taylor, Delaney, and Kelsey have honestly become some of my closest friends, even though they don't know it. They've helped me through a lot and taught me about topics I didn't even know were relevant to me. I found this podcast when I searched self-improvement, and it was so refreshing to hear from people that are going through it with you instead of saying they have it all figured out. These girls make me laugh, cry, and really reflect on myself. My therapist asked why I signed up for BetterHelp, and when I gushed forever about this podcast, and she said that Taylor, Delaney, and Kelsey must really be an inspiration for me, and I couldn't agree more. That's so nice.
Oh.
You ladies are the best. Thank you. P.S. Join the Self-Helpless Podcast Facebook group if you want a whole community of helpsters to give you guidance and some love. Oh, what a nice review. Thank you so much. I'm so glad that you signed up for BetterHelp and you're liking it. And our Facebook group is fantastic. What an awesome group of people in there.
Oh my God, absolutely. And just thank you so much for taking time to leave an incredible iTunes review. If you haven't yet, you guys know, go leave us a 5-star rating and review on the show and you get a chance to be read on the episode. So
yes.
Del, do you have any segments, any good shit, any the fucks, any of that?
You know, I do have a good shit. I wasn't going to announce it this episode, but I feel like I want to because I think it's super relevant to what Liz was talking about. So I think it will be helpful for our listeners. But I have officially launched a solo podcast. And it's
in addition to Self-Helpless.
In addition, don't you worry. I am staying put. Don't you worry. It's called Efficienado with Delaney Fisher because you know I love efficiency and simplicity, and that is my jam. And it's really focused on how to start, scale, and simplify your business or passion project. And when Liz was talking about the steps that she took to figure out what do I want, how do I get there, get rid of the clutter, that's exactly what number episode of my podcast is about. It's called 6 Questions to Ask Yourself When You're Indecisive. And it takes you step by step through this process of figuring out what the fuck you actually want, taking stock of what's on your plate, and basically taking action on certain things. So I wasn't going to plug it until there was a few episodes out, and I have not told a fucking soul that it's like basically up, but you know what? It's not perfect, but it's there. And I think it is helpful information. So check out Efficienado. You can find it on my Instagram, my website, DelaneyFisher.com, you know, the places you find podcasts.
Yes.
That's my good shit.
So proud. That's so exciting.
Thank you.
Well, you, speaking of you and your business savvy ways, you have helped me continue to keep going with my my online makeup course and starting these online makeup workshops. And I apologize if I mentioned this already, but I don't think I did. That I did my first online makeup workshop.
Yeah, I don't think you did.
I don't think I did. It was a couple weeks ago, and it was so much fun. We did an hour-long workshop where I did a Zoom workshop with people, and we went over their specific makeup needs. We all did our makeup together. It was a blast, and I felt great getting to connect with people in a more one-on-one way, because that's so different than my online makeup course, which is, you know, a 5-video makeup course that I have created that you go watch on your own. But doing a workshop is so much more interactive, and both are great. I'm obviously excited about both, but I decided I'm going to make it a monthly thing. So it's going to be makeup and mimosas, which is just the fucking girliest shit ever. I mean, I'm allergic to champagne, so, you know, throw in some vodka if you want. I don't care. If you don't drink, just drink some juice. But yeah, it's going to be usually every first Sunday of the month, where it'll be first come, first serve. There'll be 3 spots available. I'm just going to keep it small so I can make sure to give people enough time, make sure that their concerns are being addressed with makeup in that hour 15-ish. And you get to get glammed up and then go to brunch. Right?
Yes.
It's just like, it's a fun thing to do on a Sunday. So if you're interested, message me on Instagram. My Instagram's at Kelsey Cook Comedy, KELSEY Cook Comedy, and send me your email address. If you're interested in this, I will put you on the list and then notify you when the next workshop is. It's going to be Sunday, November 8th. So if you want to get in on it, let me know, and I'll reach out to you.
Beautiful. You guys, listen, as somebody who has had their face completely transformed by Kelsey Cook, you need to get in this workshop. I'm telling you, some of you might not even think that you need it, and you do. Okay. Because I'm like, you know how I am. I'm like, whatever I do is fine. It's just,
Right.
But Kelsey gives you highly personalized advice and feedback and tells you exactly what product to buy for your skin tone, your eye shape, your everything. And you can make it very simple for yourself where the routine that you're already doing, sometimes there's just a couple extra little tips that make a huge difference. I can't tell you, I use her advice every time I have to do my makeup, and I'm always just very excited about it because I've been a real hot mess, as you guys know, if you've listened to the show before. This is not something I've been good at. So just go sign up. It's fantastic. And you're going to feel really good. I feel very sexy and powerful after I do the Kelsey Cook method. I'll tell you that. I feel like, shit, I'm a woman. I mean, listen, whether you wear makeup or not, you're a woman, but I'm just saying, I feel like a boss bitch. And I appreciate it. So yeah, I'm proud of you, and I'm excited that you're having fun with it.
Thank you. You're so kind. Those are very nice words. You sent me a picture of you over the weekend when you had done your makeup, and you looked so fucking beautiful. I was like, who is this Victoria's Secret model that just slid into my phone?
Used all the tips.
Stunning.
Used all the tips.
Oh.
I got a little sheet with all my hot makeup tips on it.
I love that you wrote them down. That's fantastic.
I have to write them down and keep them in my makeup drawer, or else I will forget, because there's a lot of cute little ones that you just, if you don't do your makeup for a while, you might forget.
Yes.
And it's really fun. No, you've made me enjoy getting ready and putting makeup on, because I used to fucking hate it. So
I could cry. That makes me so happy. And as always, the online makeup course, you can find the link to that in my bio of my Instagram as well. So if you love makeup, if you're interested in learning more about it, being a Delaney, where before you're like, ugh, I don't want to do this, but I tell you, make you feel great.
Yes, I can. Kels, is there anything you want to plug before we wrap it up?
Yes, I will be headlining Helium Comedy Club in Philly, December 3rd through the 5th. If you guys are in Philly or if you're near there, kelseycook.com for tickets. I'm so excited. 5 shows, socially distanced, taking temperatures at the door. The Helium Comedy Clubs have been really, really safe and great. So come out to that.
Beautiful. And there's a thing, I want to plug. I have a bunch of free shit on my website for you. If you go to DelaneyFisher.com, there are 12 ways to grow your podcast for free, 5 mistakes entrepreneurs make and how to fix them. There's an eco-friendly jump starter kit, which so many of you have been asking me for. So all of my favorite, a lot of my favorite products and tips for a more eco-friendly lifestyle. There's a resume template that works really, really well. It's 100% effective, not going to lie, at least from my clients and loved ones. And I also will be distributing, if you're on my email list, you will get a worksheet that corresponds with each episode of Aficionado. So you can do the exercises while you listen. So you'll get that too on DelaneyFisher.com free shit page.
Hell yes.
Boom.
Well, with that, I think that's all we got for you guys this week. But thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you next week.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye. Thank you guys so much for listening to Self-Helpless. We really appreciate it and would love anything you can do to help the show grow and get the word out. So if you could leave us a 5-star rating and review on iTunes, that helps us move up the iTunes charts. If you can tell a friend, a coworker, a family member, anybody that you think would love the podcast, you can also screenshot an episode and share it in your Instagram, in your Instagram stories. Anything helps. Also, if you want more of the show, if you want bonus episodes, if you want to be able to be more interactive and help choose podcast topics, you can go to patreon.com/selfhelpless and join there. You guys can follow me on Instagram at Kelsey Cook Comedy, on Twitter at Kelsey Cook. You can go to my website, kelseycook.com, which has links to my online makeup course. You can listen to my album, Savor It, on Spotify and iTunes, and you can watch my foosball web series on YouTube called Wrists of Fury. How about you guys? Where can people find you?
You can follow me at Taylor Tomlinson on Instagram and Twitter. My website is ttomcomedy.com. And you can watch my 1-hour special streaming on Netflix right now called Quarter Life Crisis.
Awesome. And you can find me at DelaneyFisher.com. That's where you'll find information about my one-to-one consulting and my online courses. So basically, if you're a business owner, podcaster, or comedian, and you're looking to either start those things or grow those things, you can reach out to me for more information. I also have an email list at DelaneyFisher.com where I share my favorite tools, tips, treats, and free shit. And then we just want to say a big special thank you to our wonderful editor, Emma Erdbrink, and our fantastic associate producer, Humaira Nawaz.
And you can find everything that we all just mentioned at selfhelplesspodcast.com.